Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Wednesday, April 21st, 2021. I'm Andrew Hansen alongside Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. And man, do we have a big slate today, Coach. 12 NBA games, and we're going to build a two brains are better than one lineup for FanDuel. Are you ready?
Oh man, I am so pumped up for today. This is like DFS heaven. We've got a 15 game baseball slate too. 12 game NBA, and then we have the golf tournament that starts tomorrow. So this is like, swimming in DFS. I love it. Can't be better. And I'm
Absolutely.
ready to go, man. We're hammering this out. We're staying under an hour because we want you guys to get all this information in and not have to take up too much of your day. So we are on this speed, like speed chess. I'll make my move and I'll hit the button.
Oh, that's the hardest thing to do, speed chess, man. I need
Oh,
that
I
extra
hate
time.
it.
So we got 13 of the 24 teams involved in a back-to-back. Two
How about
totals over
that?
230.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. Yeah, you've got Chicago, Cleveland to start us off.
Yeah. And we've got a list of like 277
I
guys
know.
sitting or questionable. But that is the NBA right now, and we're all in the same boat. So rather than squeak and cry, it's like, hey, let's use this to our advantage. So, yes, the first 7 o'clock game, and there's multiple 7 o'clock games, it is Chicago, Cleveland. It is the first night of a doubleheader for Chicago, or two games in 2 days, and Cleveland's on an island game. Chicago favored by three, Cleveland 211 and a half total with this Cleveland Chicago game. And as far as pace goes, nothing to write home about with 13th for Chicago, 24th for Cleveland. Defensively, also both teams struggle though, 19 and 21. The only person that we have out right now for Chicago is Brown, or I'm sorry, not out completely. He is doubtful. So, you've got most of the guns loaded here for this game, but it's not, a great game as far as when you're looking at a 12 game schedule and you're looking at one of the lowest numbers on the whole board, if not the lowest, then, do you really want to spend much money there? I'm not a big fan of this game. I will tell you though, you know, you can get a one-off in this game that could create some trouble for you. Levine is still out, so that's the question is, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that on the injuries, but he's out. So Kobe White definitely steps up into play, especially against a poor Cleveland backcourt. And depending on the rotation that Chicago uses, if they put Temple in there for defensive purposes on Sexton, which I would assume makes sense. But it's still one of those guys, Garland or Sexton, need to guard Kobe. So I sort of like Kobe here as a guy that's going to get ignored with all of these 24 teams playing. But without Levine, he's shown that he's taken control of the team, and I think that he deserves a little bit of a look. Really, on the Cleveland side, not interested. Just don't see anybody stepping out. And the nice part about this many teams is you can be very picky about your build. So that's really all I've got in this one. Not too crazy excited about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar. Kobe White, my favorite player in this game. Uh, Definitely playable without Levine. Still a good price, mid 5K range. On Cleveland, I wouldn't mind one of the guards. Probably lean towards Sexton, but obviously he's a lot more pricey than Kobe, and it's not a great game environment. So most likely Kobe or pass for me as well.
Excellent.
All right, game two. Oklahoma City and Indiana. Much better game here. A total of 229. Indiana favored by 9. We have the number 6 and number 7 pace teams in the NBA.
Yeah.
And we have OKC's below average defense. And the news here, we have Roby, Muscala, Hall still out. The Dortcher chamber is questionable. Big turning point potentially on this slate. And on the Indiana side, Sabonis is out.
Yeah.
Goga is questionable. Lamb, McDermott questionable. So that's a big spot to consider as
And
well.
and I have Turner out. Do you have Turner out?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So wow, they're going deep on that bench. Is
they
this going to be like one of the guys that never usually plays going to make our lineup here?
he might. He might. We'll get to him in a second. Let's start with OKC.
Okay.
Dort, he deserves all of our respect. We have to talk about him first. So the surprising thing for me is he's 5,700 still on FanDuel. They
Yeah,
priced him up on
odd.
DraftKings, but that I did a double take when I saw that price for Dort. So I like him here if he plays. I don't think this questionable tag is really significant. I think it was just back to back rest on the last one.
Yeah.
And I mentioned the pace. Indiana, they've just gone up and up. They're sixth now. So when he's out there, he's been running the show. So I like him on FanDuel. Your man Baisley, pretty steady lately, which is his
Yeah, I
weakness.
like him. Yeah.
Throughout the season, he kind of comes and goes, but four straight games with between 15 and 19 field goal attempts, and
Yeah.
that's what we didn't get earlier in the season. So he's also playable for me in this one. With Indiana, Goga, if he starts on DraftKings, he's cheaper. He's 4,200. I like that price. He's a little bit more expensive on FanDuel. And then one of these value guys that you're referencing, Brissett, very cheap, 25 minutes last game, hit 3 of 5 3-pointers, and they need bodies. So
Yeah.
he's a guy that you could get out there. Brogdon, Levert, you could go with one of those guys too, but I don't think you need to pay up there. And it's not like I want to get 3 or 4 guys from this game. So most likely Dort and maybe a Indiana value guy.
Well, I'm going to stun you here. There's a couple of moving parts that I need to know what the results are, but I may have 2 or 3 guys from this game, Andrew. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
It falls right for me, and here, I'll explain real quickly. If Dort plays, I like Dort at that price on FanDuel. I think it's a steal. It's a misprice. I mean, he's the amount of shots he takes when he plays, and how much he's part of the offense. I love. If Dort sits, I really like Baisley. I've been on this Baisley bandwagon. Like you said, he's consistently putting up 15 to 20 shots, a lot of threes as well. And he's so athletic and big around the basket. And with Indiana just decimated inside, I think Baisley could have a field day. So he's super high on my radar. So those 2 guys. And then on the Indiana side, I think Karis LeVert might be the best play on the slate if Dort sits, because somebody's got to take all those shots, and LeVert's usually the guy with his hand up first with wanting to take the shot. So if Dort sits, I love LeVert, and if Dort plays, then I'm hesitant because we've got 24 teams. Do we really want to take a LeVert with that kind of defense against him? So it's funny, but I could come out with 0 guys from this game, or I could come out with like 3. So we need that news, but I do like this matchup. I think it's going to be a sneaky good one, and I'm excited for this game.
Excellent.
All right, next one is Phoenix and Philadelphia. It's also 7 o'clock. We have both teams on the first night of a back-to-back. Phoenix, this is with a highlight game of the slate to watch. You've got a possibility, you got to say that now, of a finals matchup here, the way these 2 teams have played. Phoenix -1 on the road at Philly. That's a slight gut punch for Philly, but that's because some of their guys are banged up. The total's 221, which is very fair. Nothing to write home about with Phoenix's pace. As we know, they control tempo. They're 25th. Philadelphia is 10th, though. They do push the ball, even though they're so good defensively. But here's the red alarm siren, like we post in Discord, going off. 5th and 2nd, 2 of the top 5 defenses in the league. Again, this game is going to have some meaning to it, for the future. So I think both teams are going to play hard if the key guys play. And that's the $1 million question here. Saric, who's a key guy off the bench, pretty much for Phoenix, is questionable. And then the 2 of the 3 studs for Philly with Harris and Simmons, both questionable. So, obviously news is most important here. if Simmons and Harris are out again, then I don't know how you don't go to Embiid just because he's Embiid and he's going to get all the usage. And it doesn't matter who they're playing. I don't care if it's Phoenix. He's, to me, second in the MVP voting right now and, playing terrific. So if Simmons and Harris sit, Embiid will be my pay up guy on this huge slate. If they play or even one plays, I may shift from him because of the cost. And then on the Phoenix side, we never usually roster folks. I don't particularly like anybody here at their price tags. And that's it. I'm good to go.
Okay. Yeah. Joel will be really a key guy to consider here if Simmons and Harris are out. I think he's playable. He's not my favorite pay up guy on this slate. There are a couple value centers I think we can look at. And then with Phoenix, I doubt I'll go there because of that Philly defense. But if Simmons is out, then these guards become more in play, more of a GPP option for me. So in general, this game is a pass. Just don't like these two excellent defenses. I like them. I appreciate them, but not for DFS.
I'm with you.
All right, this next 7 o'clock game is where I want to pay up a little bit. Golden State and Washington. Coach, how about number 1 and number 2 in pace?
I know
in the
you
NBA?
win the lottery today. Usually I always get these kind of
You
games.
absolutely do.
You crushed this one.
Well over 230 here for the total, and Golden
How about 238.5, buddy?
Yeah, exactly. Golden State favored by 2. Island game for both teams. That's nice. And we have Juan Toscano Anderson out, Damian Lee questionable, Rui is out for Washington. So how about Steph here? We talked about him on the show yesterday. He's had 4 of the last 5 games over 60 fantasy points, 4 of the last 5 games where he's made at least 10 threes. He is just unstoppable right now, and he gets Washington's 21st ranked defense in that fast pace. So Steph is my pay up guy for the day.
Do you know that in the last 4 games, he has 43 threes, which is the most of any player in a 4-game stretch in NBA history? How about that?
I mean, most great shooters don't get even one game with 10 3-pointers.
No.
And he's doing it every night.
He's got something like 73 in the last 10. Guys used to try to get 100 in a season.
Right.
He's got it in a week.
It's the best streak of shooting, really. 3-pointers with volume and efficiency
Outrageous.
ever. So,
how are they going to defend him? That's the question. And why are people not running double teams? If a guy's that hot, I force Wiggins, Bazemore, Green, Looney, fill in whoever you want to beat me. I do not let him get that shot off.
The problem is he is so fast and so great at moving without the ball and obviously using screens. He just wears you down, and he just won't stop, and he just needs that little inch of an opening, and the shot is off. So
Man.
I'm ready to pay up for him tonight. You could pair up his buddy Draymond with him. They have great correlation when they're going well. Wiggins is the other guy I would consider here. 42 minutes in that last one against Philly.
Yeah.
Decent price tag for him. Not going to mess with Oubre and Bazemore. Bazemore started last game but only played 14 minutes. Oubre 22 minutes off the bench.
Yeah,
so
they were duds.
That's just a little bit of a mess right now. With Washington, you could run it back with Westbrook or Beal. Westbrook, how about 8 of the last 9 games with a triple-double? He's been on a bit of a mission himself.
Yeah.
Beal is a nice discount on FanDuel. He's too expensive for me probably on DraftKings. And then you could go with another value guy here, a Bertans, Denny Avdia, more of a GPP option. But I'm ready to pay up for Steph. Coach, how about you?
I'll tell you what, I would think the majority of people in the industry will start their roster with Curry and Westbrook and then figure out the rest, because there's plenty of value with 24 teams playing, and you can find those spots. And those 2 guys have been historic this last month. They really have. But I think I'm going to go a little contrarian here, Andrew, believe it or not. I know that Neither one of these teams defends a lick. I can tell you that. So I want a ton of exposure here, but I think I'm going to pivot slightly and maybe go with the secondary guys and a few value plays. I think this is the key game. It's the highest number on the board. It's supposed to be a close game with the 2-point spread, island game for both. Everything fits perfectly. But I'm looking more at the Beal and Wiggins level. Just, still a ton of exposure. Those guys have been smashing too, and nobody talks about them because Curry and Westbrook have been doing so well. But I like the two secondary guys here. And then I want to fill in with a Draymond or possibly a Gafford again. I know I keep beating this Gafford drum to the ceiling and back, but he's going to get more minutes in a game like this. There were a few things that happened last time that shortened his minutes, but I want to see. I'm going to look and really examine it if I can put him in on the sites where you can have more than two centers because he's cheap, and if he does get 25 to 30 minutes, which probably more like 20 to 25, I got to think about him a little bit. But I'm going to take a look there again. And then Beal, like I say, is my main pay up here because the price is still much cheaper than Westbrook. And I think Wiggins is a good deal because, got to remember the entire backcourt of Washington doesn't defend. They seem to have really factored up Wiggins' role in the offense. And if they do try to double Curry or really get the ball out of his hands, and put just they could rotate a bunch of guys, fresh guys on him like Ish Smith and Neto and then Westbrook, and they may all take 5-6 minute spots on him just to try to lay up against him and not let him, get through those cracks like you mentioned. So, a different approach here in the sense of, I might be the only person in the United States of America that doesn't have Curry and Westbrook in their lineup, but I am going to have a lot of exposure to this game. And I think it's still, where the pricing factors in, where Curry or Westbrook could be 5x at those giant prices. If I get Wiggins or Beal at 7.5x, I'm, same level of points and more salary to use in the rest of the board. So interesting theory here.
Yeah, I think the secondary stars could be a smart approach here. With Gafford, the thing with Gafford is we've got Coach Brooks here, and he doesn't seem to be seeing what we're seeing with Gafford's production per minute.
The Isaiah Stewart thing from a month ago.
Yeah, because some of these games recently, it's been like a 3-way split exactly of 16 minutes, and I just don't think you can count on 24 minutes for Gafford. And
I know.
If he gets 4 blocks again, he could pay off value, but I just don't like that 3-way split.
It's probably a GPP offshoot because Len gets in foul trouble, or every once in a while Brooks plays Len the first 6-7 minutes and never puts him back in, so you never know. But you're right, for cash it's too risky on this big of a slate, but it's going to happen where he gets 30 minutes and gets 45 fantasy points and at 2% ownership, and I want to be on that train, but probably not on this card. You're right.
Okay. You got the next one.
I know.
7 o'clock game.
I'm checking my time because we're keeping it rolling here.
Yes, we are.
All right. The last 7 o'clock game, also interesting. Brooklyn and Toronto. Talk about two teams with lots of moving parts and shifting guys in and out. Brooklyn on the second night of a back-to-back after Kyrie, was our main play yesterday. Had a bad first half. Had a terrific second half. So those folks in Discord that were squeaking, the oil was leaking everywhere. We heard this squeak, squeak that first half. Look what he did the second half. So we were fired up about that. But second night of a back-to-back, what's the situation with Irving going to be? How much is he going to play with Harden and Durant out? So that's the question. Have you seen any news on Irving at all?
I have not.
Yeah, so I've got him counted in right now, but a little concerned about the minutes and the output. It's 228.5, which is a big number. Toronto a couple point favorite, but as far as the pace goes, they're 11th and 12th, so solid. Defense of Brooklyn 23rd, Toronto 11th. So great opportunities here for a lot of ceiling games from some of these guys, especially with the benches the way they are and guys being in and out. So I have right, and you tell me if you're wrong, if I'm wrong here, but I mean these two teams have been the two most volatile teams recently. I have Lowry and Van Vliet in.
Yeah, everybody's available, and I was glad you get this game to break down to try to project the lineup because who knows what they're going to do.
I mean, that's the thing is, we've had so many fill-in guys from Toronto do so well. Is, how much does Flynn get in there with Lowry and Van Vliet both back? We do have Watson and Hood out for Toronto. So, Watson had been playing well off the bench as well. With this type of a slate, you hate to just not play Toronto in a situation where Brooklyn's defense is poor, but I don't trust any minutes here. They're 10 games below 500. I guess they can still get to that 10th play-in spot, but rolling Lowry and Van Vliet and just playing him 38 minutes, I know he does that a lot. I just don't trust it here, especially with the way that Bembry and Flynn and all these guys have played. I don't have any of the Toronto guys factored in enough minutes to make enough of an impact for me with all the usage getting spread back around. So in a nutshell, could a couple of these Toronto guys go off? Absolutely. I'm not going to have any exposure there. I don't want the risk of worrying about those minutes and with this many options. On the Brooklyn side, if Kyrie plays and there's no restrictions, he's hard not to take with the other two big guys out. Because, you look at the rotation of guys that they're playing, there's, Joe Harris is a spot-up shooter, outstanding. The rest of the team, though, there's nobody that's a go-to guy at this point. Brown's a defender. Green is just contributing. He did have a monster dunk yesterday. Oh, my God. Blake Griffin, we know he can do some things, but he's going to probably play 22 minutes. And then you got all those other guys that they rotate in. So, this is a Kyrie or bust game for me overall. I want to read all the way up until lock and make sure, we're going to get that 35-minute run from Kyrie. If we do, I'm not afraid to pay up, use a little bit of the savings from not rostering Curry or Westbrook, because I do think this Brooklyn-Toronto game could be high scoring. And if Brooklyn's going to stay in the game and Vegas thinks they are, and it's a high scoring game, I still think he gets the majority of those points. And he put up 56, I think, fantasy points yesterday. And, halfway through the second quarter, he was sitting at like 12. So if he gets off to a normal start, 60 is certainly a doable number, in my opinion.
You talking about Kyrie?
Yeah, what did I say?
Oh, yeah. I don't think he got quite that high with the fantasy production. I mean, he did have an awesome fourth quarter. But,
Well,
yeah,
I'm going to go low.
That was one of those reminders where we both had him as 100% lock. And sometimes when that happens, it's good to think about it and realize that that's a common mentality. And that's really often a good time to fade somebody, at least in one GPP lineup,
Right.
just in case he's solid like yesterday instead of smashing it against New Orleans like he probably should have.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. He was only 45,
Yep.
but 32 real points, 8 assists. That's still solid, but not
Yep.
not right where we need a little bit more than that tonight if we're going to roster him.
Right. So I agree with you here in terms of just being very cautious about this game. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, have all my lineups built and organized. And then at the very end, once we see who's starting for Toronto, figure out if we want to shift a little bit and pivot and get a guy or two in, really on both sides, because Kyrie would be the big domino over there, of course, if he sits. Then guys like Shamet come squarely into play in the 4K range. He could really be leading the offense if Kyrie's sitting. And then with Toronto, we'll just have to wait and see.
It's such a hit. This is the toughest game on the slate to figure out.
Yeah, and so let's just wait for the lineups, and then maybe you get one guy in there to take advantage of Brooklyn's bad defense, or you fade it because they're all back and they may not play big minutes.
Exactly.
All right, let's move to 8 o'clock. We've got Atlanta in New York, 216.5 total. Atlanta favored by 2. Both teams on a back-to-back here after winning last night. We've got the slow pace on both sides. New York's awesome defense. So this is not a game I'm excited about here on a 12-game slate. If you look at Atlanta's last game, all of their starters had between 10 and 16 field goal attempts, and that's just not what you want when you've got guys who are priced up a little bit going against New York's defense. So I don't think I'm gonna invest in Trey or Bogdan or even Herter. He's the cheapest. And then Collins trending back up in minutes. He got 25 minutes. So he's not quite probably ready for me to pay around $7,000 for him. On the New York side, better matchup, of course, but it is a back-to-back for them. We've got Burks questionable with the health and safety protocols. If he's out again, then maybe you look at one of these guards as a GPP option. Bullock is really cheap on FanDuel. He's been hitting a bunch of threes. Randall has dominated Atlanta, 64 fantasy points on average across 2 games, but he's at least 10K on both sites. So a little bit tougher to get to him today. So real good chance that this is a fade for me.
Yeah, I think this game is a fade for me. I mean, 216.5, no thanks on a slate like this. The guys are priced high too. I mean, you have to pay a lot for Young, Collins, Capella, Randall. Those guys are all priced high in a slow-paced game that, there's a lot of sharing of the ball with Atlanta. Capella now with Collins back. Collins takes a shift at center and Capella sits. It just, I don't see any value on the Atlanta side whatsoever. Don't want to pay the 10K plus for Julius, although he's awesome. And then after that, though, the rest of the Knicks are just all a question mark. The guard rotation. I mean, Bullock has been making threes. He shoot the ball well, but real risky. Maybe GPP-ish, but he's a guy who can throw up a 12 DFS point kind of game if he's not hitting some threes. So I don't like this game. I'm going to move on if it's all right.
Yes, sir.
All right, next game I've got on my list is Utah and the Houston Rockets. So I got to go back there. Okay. We've got Utah minus 11. It's a 226 over under. Pace, Utah 16th, Houston 5th. Defense, Utah's 4th. Houston sinks all the way down to 25. So we've got interesting situation. You got the main guys playing for both teams. The news that I have so far, you've got the regular, Conley, Ingles, Bogdanovich, O'Neal, Gobert, Clarkson, all available playing, which, generally makes their team very sound. And, they're adjusting still to Mitchell being out, but they haven't really missed a beat. And I think they've got that rotation set to go. Houston now, as we said the other day, when they're all playing, with Wall, Porter, Olynyk, and Wood specifically having to all share the ball, and they're going against a good defensive team, it makes it very difficult for me. This is another one of those games where, I'd like to roster somebody from Houston, but can you pinpoint who's going to be the go-to guy against this defensive unit? I just don't want to pay up the price for Wood, Wall, and even Porter's just a little too expensive for me against a real sound Utah defense. Now, Houston doesn't play good defense, but, Conley, Bogdanovich, Gobert, they're sharing the ball. Like I said the other day as well, a lot of that Mitchell usage just got spread out. Clarkson jumped up a little, so did Conley. Bogdanovich did. So it's not like it just went to the guy that took his place. I mean, Ingles is Ingles. He's going to hit some threes. He's going to get some assists. But whether he makes value or not is always within question. So I don't like this game either. It could be these two games back to back are probably going to be passes for me because I don't want to risk a low number.
Yeah, pass for me as well. Any of those key guys for Utah, if they get 38, 39 fantasy points, they still haven't really paid off value. So
Right.
I don't really want to invest in that. Bless you. I'm gonna fade this one as well. All right, we move to 8:30. Detroit and your Mavericks.
Yeah.
219 total. Mavs favored by 10 at home. Front end of a back to back for both teams, and we've got Detroit's A team, so to
Yeah.
speak, likely to get out there tonight after Grant, Plumlee, Kojo all sat. They're back and available here tonight. Hayes, who got that start, now is going to sit this one out. Magruder is also out. Dennis Smith Jr. doubtful.
Right.
On the Dallas side, we have THJ questionable. And this one is a little bit more attractive to me than the last two games. We've got poor defenses here, but we don't have good pace. It's just that you've got the new squad to consider here for Detroit. So Corey
Right.
Joseph likely back as the starter. He's 5,000 on both sites. He's playable, but he doesn't always get a ton of shots. Slow pace game. Not my favorite option. We do like to play centers against Dallas, but what's going to happen tonight with Plumlee back? Does he decide to show up and get closer to 30 minutes, or is it more of a split like last time? So I think it's a little risky to go to either of those guys. Stewart is still cheap on FanDuel at 4,500 as a power forward, coming off a huge game, but does he get more than 24 minutes? So tough analysis there. I'm probably going to end up fading that situation. And then with Dallas, Luka back playing the way we wanted him to against Sacramento, scoring 37 points. But he's ultra expensive. Will he get enough possessions to pay off? I'm not sure. He's not my favorite pay up option here. The guy that I just keep going back to here is Brunson on DraftKings tonight. He's 4,400 for a guy that just almost always pushes right around 30 fantasy points. I don't know why his price isn't higher. Will this be the day he puts up 19 or 20 fantasy points? Probably. So he's not a lock for me, but he's probably that price is probably my favorite out of this whole game is Brunson on DraftKings. So guys that are more tempting to me here, Coach, but nobody that I'm really high on. Do you feel differently about anyone?
No, I don't like this game at all. And it is a shame because it could have been a really good game, if Detroit wasn't doing this hockey, player shift,
Right.
playing five different guys every game. I have Plumlee and Stewart both marked for 24 minutes. So, when you're getting a guy that's only going to play half the game and you're starting your team with that, when you can roster one center on FanDuel, or I mean, I know you can use Stewart at power forward there, but still to take a big man spot, and now you're really having a press because if you want a guy to, how much can you smash your value if you're only playing half the game? So that eliminates them for me. The pace here is 22 and 26, which is terrible. Defenses aren't good, 15 and 20, but if there's no, such a slow paced, lower possession type scenario here, and then you have a double digit spread, which, first of all, the fact that Dallas is a double digit spread is an absolute travesty. They lost at home to the Sacramento Kings. The Kings have won one of their last 12, and it was that game in Dallas. So, I just shake my head at this game. No way I'm paying up for Luka. Porzingis is the single most overpriced DFS player in the NBA this season. And I think this game is going to be very hard for anybody to reach value. The only guy that I would say I like a smidgen, but I'm not going to play him is Jeremy Grant because he's probably going to get Dorian Finney-Smith defense, which I respect. But Jeremy does play that downhill game, where he can slice in the paint and cause some trouble. So, but I'm not going to roster anybody from here. So I'm ready to move on to the last 8:30 game before we get to the 3:10 o'clock games. And that's the Miami Heat at the San Antonio Spurs. Spurs on the first night of a back-to-back, which, that's the Spurs pop factor. It's a back-to-back. So that, gives you, as my grandmother would say, agita right away. And then it is a pick 'em, though, which is sort of stunning. But I guess it's because, Miami's expecting, to be missing a few guys. Bam, Butler, Hero, and Dedmon, all questionable. Now, maybe they all play. Who knows? But if they do all play and you can get that as a pick 'em, then you did some good stuff. But it's only 215, so it's down there with, the other two. There's 3 real low games, and those are the 3 of them. San Antonio, just because they have most of their guys for this game doesn't mean they're going to play most of their guys. The Miami defense is tough, but you can't really, provide the right information for this game until we know who's playing. I mean, how do we recommend anything? If Hero, Bam, and Butler and Dedmon play, all 4 of those guys are going to have an impact. They'll be 4 of the probably 8-man rotation. So, we need that news before we make any decisions here. But I will say, I respect the 2 teams' defenses, 6th and 12th, and neither one wants to fly up and down the floor, 28th and 17th. Low total, the possibility of Pop doing Pop stuff, and then not knowing who's in there with Miami. I think unless we have that news, I don't see a specific matchup in this game that makes me want to jump at anybody either.
Yeah, the front end for San Antonio on this slate against Miami gets a big star, and it's a fade situation, not playing a Spur tonight. With Miami, what I'm looking at is if all those guys are out, then we should have a couple value options. With the guards, Nunn or Dragic squarely in play for me. They both were great in that last one with those guys out. Good price tags. And then Precious Achiuwa could be the last big man standing.
True.
At 4,000, he's a power forward on FanDuel, which is nice. You don't have to use the center position, and only 3,400 on DraftKings. So if Dedmon is out and Bam, then Achiuwa is very attractive to me, and I could go with one of those guards as well.
Yeah, let me just say real quickly, if those guys all sit, which I don't think they will, then Achiuwa and Ariza for me would become in play.
Okay. All right, let's move to 10 o'clock. We got 3 games there, starting with Memphis and the Clippers on NBA TV. We have a 227 total. Clippers favored by 1.5 after that 1-point win against Portland. That was exciting. Down to the wire.
Yep.
We've got Kawhi still out for the Clippers. And then on the Memphis side, Joval still out, and question marks for Dillon Brooks and Triple J. So
at least Triple J's on the board now.
He's trending.
He's ready to come back.
Going to go through every injury designation until he's marked in.
Exactly.
So, if he continues to be out with Joval still out, I'll fire up my man Tillman again here.
Yeah. He looked great, man.
He did.
He played a good game.
He played really solid, nice double-double. Double overtime certainly helped his final numbers, but he was steady and solid throughout the whole game. And their key big man there. So he's the guy I like the most here. Probably won't go to anybody else for the Clippers, for the Grizz. On the Clippers side, we'll see if Paul George goes back-to-back here. If he does, he's in play for me. We do have enough value to get a couple of these stars outside of the key games, and this is not, a key game for me, but he's playable with Kawhi out. And if he sits, then it's really an opportunity to get one of these guys, Man, Luke Kennard, Rondo, who's really seems to be settling in and doing his thing. So we'll wait and see about Paul George, but I like Tillman a lot here. He's one of my key value plays, assuming Triple J is out.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Tillman will be value center or power forward, if you will, either way, on some of the sites. If those big guys remain out, there's no doubt about it. And, he showed that he can get the minutes and he can get it done. I want to see if George is out. If George is out, then all of a sudden I've got serious interest in Morris and Kennard from that side of the ball. So if he's in, then I would actually consider him, because when he does play, he usually just plays. It's like you either get 35, 36 hardcore minutes from him, or he sits. So if he's in, I like him. If not, Kennard and Morris get my attention. And then on the Memphis side, I'm with you on Tillman unless we get different news. If Dylan Brooks is out, because he's on that questionable tag as well, and with Joval being out, a lot of usage to go around there, because those guys both have their hands on the ball a lot. So, as a super punt value play, I think Grayson Allen has been shooting the ball well. This total's up there. The 227 is a respectable number. He could be a real sneaky second shooting guard in there that could get, 20 some real points. And then Ja also, again, if Brooks is out specifically, because Anderson's not a usage guy. You take Brooks and Jovel off the floor. The initiation of offense and shots are going to fall to Morant and to me, I think Allen. Now, Melton comes off the bench and does a nice job, but you really can't quite go there on this big of a slate. But I wouldn't count Ja out. I think that, without that Pat Bev D and a few of their guys not playing, I think that he's in play here. So I could get a couple of guys from this game easily, but really it all hinges on the George news.
Yes, indeed.
All right, second to last, the second of the third after-hour slate game, the Denver Nuggets at the Portland Trailblazers, second night of a back-to-back for Portland. Denver's favored by 2 with a nice, healthy 229 over-under. We've got one big problem here, the pace. Denver 29, Portland 20, but we have poor defense. 16 Denver, 29 Portland. And Lillard is in. So, this game could be a shootout, adjusting without Murray there. Do you have news on Morris, Monte Morris?
I believe he's out.
Okay, so, I don't think I can go Campazzo here, even though he's going to get the good-sized minutes.
We also have Rivers probable to get out there and make his debut. Austin
and that
Rivers,
was the next reason why I don't think I can take Campazzo, because I think they give Rivers probably 12 to 15 minutes, and that's just enough to eliminate, Campazzo completely on this big of a slate. But I do like a fresh Lillard coming into this game. Portland's in a real dogfight for positioning for the playoffs. I think McCollum's probably a little gassed. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets lesser minutes or even as a late scratch. So Lillard is in play for me at that price. If George sits, that other pay-up guy would probably go to Lillard for me. I just like the matchup. I like the fact that I think this game, pace-wise, even though they both play pretty slow, I think there's enough defensive efficiency here that they can get the ball off of transition through turnovers and everything else that will get some open buckets and open opportunities. The bigs, more of a cancel out scenario. Covington's tough defensively. Gordon, Porter, Jokic. I don't, the Joker in this matchup, having to split and go against Nurkic, who's, good counterpart for him, and then Cantor, who's not good defensively, but it's going to be a split scenario, so that he could get Cantor the majority of his time when the Joker's on the bench. So, not wanting to use my spend up buck on the Joker there, and the other guys, a lot of sharing of the ball. which is good for them, but not great for DFS. So really, if we hear Lillard's on any type of minutes restriction, then obviously that would eliminate that spot. But I'm not going with McCollum today. I think he's had to use extra in the tank with Lillard being out. The wild card here, if Lillard's limited, may be Norman Powell to keep them in the game. His minutes have been solidified, and he is becoming a bigger and bigger part of that role, a role with the team. I don't think we need to go deeper the Simons and those guys on this big of a slate. So I have some interest here, but need to just double check some of the news. And I do think this game is going to be higher scoring than most people think, and we'll have a couple of not slate breakers, but guys, 7x, 8x kind of guys. And the key factor is, trying to hone in on who those guys are.
All right. Well, here's my take on this one. I'm trying to find that 7-8x slate breaker, and the guy that I'm looking at for a GPP lineup here, as we've got our two brains GPP lineup in mind, is Mr. Nurkic coming back into the mix. And
yeah,
the reason I think he's a good GPP option is because he's been in and out of the lineup. He's had some games where he's really splitting the time with Cantor. But if you look, a couple games ago, he got 36 minutes against Boston.
Yeah.
And in the mid 5K range, I think he'll get up for this game. Portland really wants to win after losing that tough one last night. And Jokic is not a stellar defender, so I like Nurkic here for a GPP, and that's really my favorite play in this game. Everybody else is sort of borderline, kind of like that Detroit-Dallas situation, although a little bit more attractive. But you take Lillard, for example. If McCollum is playing, I don't want to pay up for him. We've got some solid defenders like Will Barton who can give him trouble. And then, as you mentioned, the guard, everybody kind of gets messed up a little bit if Rivers is out there chucking, because he's going to come out and shoot when he's out there. So that gives a hit to Facu and also PJ Dozier, who's been a nice value play lately. So, Powell, I agree, would be that other guy in Portland to look at, especially on the after-hours slate. But looking at maybe Nurkic, and for the main slate, otherwise potentially a fade here for me.
Well, you get the jackpot game here.
Yeah, it was a jackpot last night. 254 points put up from Minnesota and Sacramento, and they're right back at it again. 239 total. Sacramento favored by 4.5. Again, basically the best game on paper with pace of 3rd and 9th. Defense is 27th and 30th. Sacramento, 11th ranked offense. The only thing you don't like is Minnesota. They're still inefficient offensively. So now what happens again? I mean, you were more into that game yesterday, and it was high scoring, but it was a little bit funky. Cat smashed. D'Angelo Russell smashed while he was out there, but ended up with 25 minutes, and he paid off value, but he was 10 of 13 from the field. So
he was awesome when he was out there.
He was. Yeah. So what happens again here tonight? I would think if he plays, he'll get 25 minutes max again. Rubio, a little bit cheaper, but it's a back-to-back for him, which I think is significant. He's 30 years old, but he kind of moves around like he's 33, 34, 35. Don't you think, Coach?
Yeah, he's starting to get, a half a step slower, that's for sure.
Yeah. It is a great game, but I don't know what to do with those guys. I don't think I want to go back to Russell, and I don't trust Rubio on a back-to-back. Cat's really expensive if he plays. So nobody's jumping out at me for Minnesota. With Sacramento, Fox was disappointing. He ended up playing 28 minutes, and he's got a questionable tag right now because of his ankle. Got dinged up a little bit, and Coach Walton said that's why his minutes were limited. So do we go back to him around 10K? I'm hesitant again. I'd rather pay up for guys like Curry. And then we got that surprise contribution on Sacramento from guys like DeLon Wright. Well, not a surprise. I mean, we talked about him, but it was a surprise in that the best value for Sacramento, we had Mo Harkless and Harrison Barnes of all people.
Yeah.
So what happens here on the back-to-back? It's tough to predict. Whiteside is another GPP option in that Nurkic range you could go to. But I just don't feel great about this game again. Do you? Do you have some clarity on this one?
I don't. I mean, it was such a tough one to watch. I mean, I said on the podcast, I figured this would be the highest scoring game on the slate, over 250. I was right about all that, but I didn't cash in on all my players here because of the things you just said. Fox, we didn't know at the time. I thought he was just doing a Walton. I thought was just, sitting him longer. And he leads the league in minutes played. So when you're talking about a guy that's used to playing 38 minutes and he gets 27 and a half, I'm about ready to chew my hand off watching it.
Yeah.
But if he has a sore ankle and it's a back-to-back and a super fast, I'll tell you, they were getting up and down the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 5 seconds between shots at times. But I don't know. I need more information on Fox. I really do, because if he has any type of injury there, at that price, you really can't afford to go that direction. And then, the other thing that drives me crazy is I absolutely read it and I checked it in 3 spots. D'Angelo Russell's minutes limit was lifted. So I expected he'd play 35 minutes and they would win the game. Well, he plays the 25 again, sits the entire fourth quarter, and he was absolutely on fire. 10 for 13 from the field, running the show, steals. I mean, he would have smashed his number, but didn't get back in. So does that mean he still has a 25-minute cap on a back-to-back after they said his minutes limit was lifted yesterday? I have no idea, but you can't afford to go there, because I sat there, got into the cash line, and was ready to make my big move, which I would have. And, you get no D'Angelo. He's not on the floor. So that was a killer. So I don't trust that at all. The guy that I, think was the most impressive, that is sort of, back-to-back doesn't matter, is Anthony Edwards. I mean, he's just such a scorer, and inside, outside, playing hard now. He loves this kind of game. This type of pace fits right into his wheelhouse. So Edwards is on my list without question. After that, I don't trust the cap minutes, or, how much he can put forth in a back-to-back when he played a ton. I know he's done some decent back-to-backs this year, but, he does get a couple of different bodies like Whiteside thrown at him. So I don't want to pay up there. And again, I wish I could play D'Angelo if I knew he was playing more minutes, but I think it's a perfect matchup for him. But I'm just not confident enough. Harkless had a ceiling game. He did have a phenomenal dunk on the baseline, by the way, is pretty awesome. He's been playing well lately, and he's been a good value. I mean, I'm not saying, don't play him, but it certainly looks like points chasing, but it's not. It's not like he's had just one good game. This is about a 10-day stretch where he's starting and playing well for Sacramento. So he'll show up in my after hours. I don't know if it's good enough to show up in the main slate. Harrison Barnes I had yesterday. There's nothing to tell me that Harrison Barnes can't get this done. I think he's tough as heck. He's playing minutes out of his mind for his age. And, his price could be considered a little high, but I want exposure to this game because I still think it could be the highest scoring game on the slate. But I need more news on Fox, more news on Russell, maybe a little Harkless, Edwards, Barnes. I'm going to find a way to maneuver some usage here, but I want to be safer with it after last night, and having to watch some of those guys play limited minutes.
Excellent. All right, Coach. Well, we've analyzed all 12 games, and now we get to put it together for our
Nice.
FanDuel Two Brains Are Better Than One GPP lineup. So
Okay.
we'll get after that and build it. You'll feel free to play it. As always, if you're new to the program here when we do this, follow us on Twitter and we'll make updates there if we need to with late player news. We are at DFS Coach Talk on Twitter. While you're there, you can follow the coach at JoeSarvadi, and you can find me at Language Olympic. All right, Coach, get us started here.
I get the first pick?
You can have
All
it.
right, man. I'll take the first pick then. How about if I start right off with Bradley Beal?
Okay, excellent. 8,500 shooting guard. There he goes.
Safe
Safe.
number for 85. He
Yes,
was
sir.
10-1 10 days ago.
Yep.
So,
Okay. Let me go with, since this is a GPP lineup, let's go with
hmm
Nurkic.
yeah.
5,800. Hope that we get him at low ownership and
Yeah,
he
I'm
pushes
comfortable
for
with that
30
pick.
minutes.
Yeah, he's got a
Beautiful.
lot of ties to this team
Yep.
and the Joker. So
Exactly.
I think that's a very reasonable play, sir.
Okay.
Want to try to give us, I'm going to go power forward Xavier Tillman, 5,000.
Excellent. Love it.
Yeah. I mean, there's not that much value as, like we would think. Now, by this afternoon, there'll probably be 30 guys
Right.
valued.
All right. How about Mr. Curry? I
Okay.
think this is a good combination where we don't go Curry and Westbrook, but we go Curry and Beal. So let's put him in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I do like that look as well. Um, all right. So that I think I want to try to go a little bit contrarian here.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I don't know if you're gonna like this pick or not. I like it though. I like $6,000 Darius Baisley.
Okay.
I know it's a little risky, but it is a GPP build.
Oh man, I wanted to put Dort in there, and I don't
Well,
don't want to
we
play them
could
both.
change it if Dort plays.
Okay.
So we'll update it later. I have Dort out right now on my sheet, but if he plays, we could flip him in there for Baisley.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we might have to mix and match a little bit
Yeah,
with
2v2
different
thing. Nope.
positions. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
He's small forward, but that's fine.
All right.
Because I
So
think remember I said if he sits, Baisley's in for me. If Dort's in, then I'm going to play him instead of Baisley. I think that's the way that shakes out. But
beautiful. Okay.
I mean, I figure we're going to have to probably change it, and Joe Stanton will update it on Twitter for our listeners. You don't have to be a member to get the updated.
All right. Well, let's just go with another GPP value play here, so you can pay up on your next pick. Let's go with Brissett, small forward, 3,800,
Okay.
and see what that allows us to do for our final three positions.
Yeah, I'd like to go with $6,900 Anthony Edwards
Okay.
in that high-paced, high-scoring game.
Yep.
I think he's the safest play.
I think you're right. You know, after your breakdown there, I was agreeing with you. I like that.
6,900 bananas for each spot here. That's great.
Yeah. Okay. So
So we might as well figure them both out at the same time here.
so
Is there a value guy
the
we
two
talked?
guys I was looking at I was looking at the point guards around 5,500 here with Nunn and Kobe White and Dragic.
I love Kobe. I like Jaw. Um,
I had Nunn and Sexton penciled in here.
Sexton's a little pricey. Plus, he may get Garrett Temple defense.
Well, if we go with let's see. What if we go with Kobe?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with Kobe.
Let's see what happens with your shooting guard pick.
It gives us 8-3. That's big bucks. Karis LeVert. I'll take Karis in a heartbeat. I'd like him over C.J. McCollum or DeMar DeRozan because DeRozan's going against Miami. All three of them are in play though, price wise.
Yeah, I think I like LeVert the best there. Also,
I do too. Yeah.
Okay,
So that's it.
there it
That
is.
was piece of cake. And I don't feel like we had to. I mean, we need obviously Brissett to do what he needs to do, but after that, we really don't have any reaches. You know, even for a GPP, I think a lot of safe stuff there.
Excellent. Well, there's the squad. We'll update it on Twitter if there's any changes. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channel and let us know if you have any questions. Membership, jump in at dfscoachtalk.com, whichever length of time you'd like, and you'll get all of our lineups, full lineups on FanDuel, Yahoo, Coach's Clipboard on DraftKings. So that'll do it. We'll be back again tomorrow for more NBA action as we look to crush it in DFS.